Welcome back to the main stage at Event Tech Live USA and Canada 2021. And for our next session, the future of event marketing with Kathryn Frankson. But first, friend of Event Tech Live, and I'm delighted to say joining us now, no doubt from Boston, Dahlia El Gazzar. Dahlia, a pleasure to see you. Thanks for being here today.
James, it's always a pleasure to see you. I wish it was like more than once a year, but hey, I'll take what I can get with you.
Fantastic. Well, it's twice a year now because we obviously we saw each other in November, didn't we? We're here in summertime in the UK now in June, and again in November. So we're increasing our frequency.
Absolutely, and welcome to this side of the pond. Next time we should be having drinks in a bar somewhere in Boston. But thank you for having me. And this is an exciting topic, so we're getting ready to get started with our guest speaker, and I can't wait to have this conversation.
Well, I'll hand over to you, Dahlia, to introduce that guest speaker and see you a little bit later on for some questions.
Thank you, thank you. So our guest speaker is the one, the only, Kathryn Frankson with Informa. I gotta tell you, she's contagious, infectious, super smart. So you guys have to better be taking notes like nobody's business. And I don't know who planned the program to give us only 30 minutes or so, because that's not cool. So we're gonna have to do something about that. I'm gonna have to talk to Adam and the ETL team about that. But Kathryn, it is super fantastic to have you on screen with me until I see you and ask you what color lipstick you have on, because that is kick ass right now. So for those that don't know you, even though I've seen you all over social media, so talk about like event marketing spot on, please introduce yourself.
What an amazing intro. Thank you. It's hard not to feed off of your energy. So yeah, Kathryn Frankson, I'm the director of event marketing at Informa. We're the world's largest event producer. So physical events, hybrid events, virtual events, event intelligence. And I'm very excited to be having this conversation.
Me too. And I think a lot of people are going to be super excited about this conversation. And I was not kidding about the note taking. So we actually have a couple of note takers that are in the chat, so they're going to help us out. But before we get started, because we've been trying to plan something a little bit fun,
yeah.
You know, just it's hump day, isn't it? It's Wednesday. It's hump day.
It is Wednesday. Yep.
Right. So this is the first ETL North America. So we have to give them something that they can shout about, take, you know, pictures of, etc. So for everybody watching, we're Kathryn and I have planned this in a very big way. We would like you to take a picture of what you're going to see right now and use it on social media, and you have to caption it. So you're going to tag ETL. You're going to tag Kathryn Frankson, and you're going to tag Dahlia El Gazzar, but you need to give us some captions on this. Kathryn, you ready?
You know I'm ready.
Okay, let's do this.
Let's do it. Here we go.
I think there's a lot of event profs and those that see us, they feel us, they feel this, all right? This is it. This is the shit right here, I'm telling you. So with that, let's get started with our conversation. And I think a lot of people, when they think of event marketing, they either are overwhelmed, they either say, well, I've done it before, it works, it's not broken, why change it, right? And they are slowly right now, I think others are taking a look at what is new, what's gonna work, what technologies that they can feed into their tech stack. And so we're going to try to address all of that in 30 minutes, but there is a disclaimer. So we're going to try to prolong the conversation after this very mini conversation, might I add. But I'm going to pick your brain for a second and ask you, when it comes to event marketing, as you're spearheading it right now, especially with all the different shows that you have your hands in, what's working and what's not working? So let's start with what's working.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting because when we talk about what's working in marketing, we go straight to marketing channels. So is it email? Is it influencers? Is it podcasts as a go-to-market strategy? You know, how much of your digital footprint should you be spending on? And what's interesting to me is there's two things that everyone has to get right before you move into your channel campaign strategy, and that's product and positioning.
Nice.
Product and positioning, because the reality is you can have a mix of channels that are supporting your event in certain ways. You might be going more on the brand side to ensure that you have really strong brand health. You might be leaning more into demand gen channels because you really need to grow volume. But the reality is marketers are so good at fine-tuning the knobs of each channel and optimizing, A/B testing, studying up on what works. But if your audience doesn't care about 150 plus education sessions, then you can be running the most highly targeted digital campaigns. You can be doing really robust segmentation, and you're not going to see the results that you want. So I think that's a big change that happened this year, because you can't, I mean, everyone in any industry, you go, okay, we've got our event, we've got a playbook. That for me became the big zoom out. Do we have the product that fits our market? Is marketing dialed in with that, with the right product market fit, the right positioning for your audience now? And then you back it into your channel strategy. But I will say on that front too, in terms of hard and fast, what's working, there's some obvious stuff. Social media it's where you can buy the most distribution. It's what, holds everyone's attention. That's working incredibly well. Email is not dead. Email is alive and well. And there's a lot that you can do. It's true. It doesn't always get the love, in terms of a marketing channel, and it's not always maybe the sexiest when it comes to where we're spending our time, but it's really important, and it still carries a lot of value. So I think a mix of both is important.
That's perfect. Well, talk about social media marketing, and let's talk about like the organic. So us from Dahlia Plus side as an agency, and we're always looking at different examples that are out there so that we can use it also for our clients. But I definitely see that Event Tech Live as an example are spot on. Like the way they were able to use their speakers as brands, not only as speakers, but as thought leaders and as brands, and use them as co-brands to their event marketing. It went viral really, really quickly. And so making sure that you're able to put that plan or strategy in place, taking a look at the different stakeholders that you have. And I know that everybody's like, yeah, well, I put a social media toolkit with a couple of Canva tiles, for our exhibitors, and cross fingers, they're going to use them. No, they're not. You're going to have to onboard them on how to use it. You're going to have to monitor it. And you're going to have to actually put a team together that is able to creatively think, what co-brands do you want with your event branding so that it catapults your event marketing, and then track it that way, right?
Yep, totally agree. And I think the two things that stood out to me, what you said, is with Event Tech, there was a clear go-to-market strategy and timeline. So instead of, especially if you have a big volume of speakers, it can be easy, you get busy when you're doing a lot of stuff with events, and it can be easy to go, maybe we've got some set and we're going to drip these out over. The more that you can have that joined up to make that initial splash, because we've all got, LinkedIn open in another browser. And when you start to go, oh, I'm seeing it here, I'm seeing it here, I'm seeing it here. And if, they're retargeting, I think right out of the gate too. So you go to the website and then suddenly you're on Instagram and you're seeing that, but it works tremendously well. So as much as you can have on the front end. And I also think pointing out that have someone dedicated to nurturing those relationships and making sure that you're seeing the posts go out, the graphics, the affiliate links, how, inviting them as speakers, have they accepted it? Because all of that creates the groundswell that gets people's attention.
I like that. So I like the word groundswell. And people know me for making up titles like nobody's business in this industry. So we're going to make up a title right now. So a new title within the marketing and event group within an industry should be like a groundswell industry cheerleader something or other. Now someone's going to have to help me in chat to make that sound like a good title. but I want the word groundswell in it. So that we're in agreement on. So for everybody that's watching, I just want to say, I am not playing Fortnite or Candy Crush on the side. I'm actually looking at the chat and social media so that I am able to have this conversation intelligently with Kathryn. So I'm not ignoring you. I am not multitasking. I am actually looking at the chat. Okay, so that's one. So with the playbook, and I think this is an assignment that, you know, Kathryn and you and me can give to our listeners today. Your assignment is to rip up the marketing playbook that you have, or that you think you have on a Google sheet, and let's start over. So let's start in the sense of, we want to know who the stakeholders really are. Who are the attendees, what their sociographics are, you know, what their psychographics are. Like, everything's changed right now. Like, and I'm not going to use the C word, I'm not going to use the P word, but really know the audience, right? Know that I have cats and dogs. Know that Kathryn loves amazing lipsticks, for example. So know them, but not be creepy about it, but know them in the sense so that you're delivering personalized marketing, and you're delivering content, and like what their experience is going to be like at that event that you want them in, the way they want it. So like everybody knows, I love white cheddar popcorn. If you put white cheddar popcorn in front of me in an event registration, I'm there. I'm yours. I'm like so yours, it's not even funny. So LiveWorks actually did that when they're like, come to the show, we're going to send you white cheddar popcorn when you're streaming in for like 3 days. I'm like, yeah, so you better send me enough white cheddar popcorn for the 3 days, right? But with all of this, and you put a playbook together and all the different tactics, like you said, what are the new KPIs or metrics that have to go with all these different tactics? Because I think that's where everybody stumbles upon, like, I'll track data later. So tell us about that. Tell us about the metrics.
Yeah. I like glazed donuts, if anyone is interested in, you know, taking that nugget of information. So you have to track your analytics. And the thing that I wanted to call out here is that typically, if any marketers, if they were tracking, which you should be, analytics across all of your channels, right? So you've got your web analytics, you've got email, you've got anything you're running paid, you've got organic, you know, whatever your marketing mix is. And I look at that every single week. I mean, some dashboards you're in a pretty agile way, but you had a bit of a funnel before. I mean, nothing is perfect, but you had this idea of, if we get this amount of reach and we see engagement to this degree, and we start looking at conversions and we're converting at X%, we know how we're going to pace for our event. And what's interesting is that that funnel has changed. When you were saying everything is different, everyone is different, people are home, you're seeing, you know, your metrics they're not following that cadence. Again, it wasn't perfect, but you might have heavy top of the funnel activity, heavy web traffic, because, you know, your audience is home, they have, you know, different buying patterns, but that's not necessarily converting at the same percentage that it has been in the past. So I think you need to be as close as possible to what is converting, because that's what you have to optimize for. And that sounds really obvious, but you could be running a lot of paid and go, well, this is what we've always done, and we need to have branded search, and we want to retarget, and we're doing lookalike audiences. But if you're not seeing any traction there, then it does tell you, okay, if our reach is right, our firmographics are correct, but no one is converting, then we have to change something, either about our messaging or about our landing page. And you don't want that lag to get too far, where campaigns are out in the field and you're not making those adjustments, because then people are already going to be seeing your creative and starting to tune it out. So you need to be really close to every campaign that you're running, that you're expecting to either, you know, convert to some degree, even if it's a micro commitment, or if it is converting to your actual event. But I would say too, social reach, engagement, if you're watching your email lists and you're seeing that those are either growing, or your segment of your engaged audience is growing, that's a great indicator. And then of course, if you're funneling everything through your website, you need to keep an eye on your uniques so that you know that you're going to have enough volume. Even if people are abandoning cart and they're going to come back, you at least need to go, okay, we're setting ourselves up for success. We've got enough volume that we're going to be able to make our numbers.
Perfect. And what you just said right now, there's something that I've been toying with in my head. Do you believe that marketing or event marketing at the moment has to be more agile than ever? Or, can people stick to, okay, so you do, all right.
No, 100%.
So,
I was going to just let you finish that, but I couldn't even hide my reaction.
Yes. So agile
just a little
marketing,
expressive over here.
It's like on 200 miles per hour. But it has to be, if you don't have the talent inside your team in order to shift or be as agile, you're in trouble, right?
Well, you are. And you said something earlier too about the personalization side of it. And that's critically important. You have to, if you're not solving a problem, if you're not speaking to your customers in a way that feels like it's answering a need of theirs. And this is that, we hear personalization and it can be easy to go, oh, okay, well, we've got some stock personas, or we can do field merges with people's first names or their company name. But the reality and the headspace that you want to get in with personalization is that you're actually speaking your customer's language. And the way that I like to put it is the copy that you need to be using is in their words, using your actual customer's words. My sister's in healthcare and I'll talk to her and she'll be talking about providers. And I'm like, is that a doctor? And we all do that in our respective industry. We lose a little bit of perspective. And so you have to be talking to past clients, looking at survey data, getting those insights, seeing if if you have heavy forums, community engagement, social threads that are taking off, and use those actual words in your marketing. And the agility part is that will be changing. I mean, the last 15 months, changed every month. How we're feeling today, we've been talking about this event now for, maybe a month or so, maybe a little. How I've felt and what I'm doing in my job has evolved even in that time. With things reopening, with what we're seeing for virtual engagement, how we feel emotionally. So yeah, that's where the agility piece comes in, and we all have to be realistic about that.
Definitely. So a couple of terms for everybody to take note on is, one is the agile marketing or agility in marketing. Yeah. I also feel, and based on what you said, Kathryn, I also feel that persuasive marketing is going to come into play on how you use copy and persuasive marketing. And sometimes I play with the word empathetic marketing, because I think people are still not in the space of saying, I'm going to come on site, or I am ready to come on site. So you have to be a little bit empathetic, not super hardcore. And actually, you have to coach your stakeholders the same thing. Exhibitors have to have that sort of like lessons learned, because they can turn off people from coming to your show. You're here doing it right as a show organizer with empathetic marketing, persuasive marketing, and then they're hardcore selling. Come, because we're going to sell you this, and people are tired. I mean, we were just talking about it right now. We're like so excited, but yet we're mentally fatigued, and we're like trying to shut down, certain communications, messages, etc. So as a show organizer, it's not only that you have to take on your marketing, you also have to make sure that you're monitoring what your exhibitors are saying, what your sponsors are saying, even what your speakers are, or what they're selling, because that could totally turn on you, kind of thing. So three things, real like quick, like rapid fire from you. How do you personalize marketing? Just 3 quick tips.
We personalize marketing. We do use personas. You got to keep those top of mind, have those referenced so that you never lose sight of, like, visually, so you can't kind of go into your box. We pull actual language from survey data where we ask, what are your pain points? What are you feeling? What are the opportunities? Use that to create copy on our landing pages. And then also heavy segmentation of actual campaigns so that you're using the right imagery, copy, and it's as less broad brushstroke as possible.
Right. So it's funny because a lot of people still have visuals of like face-to-face meetings and they're using it for marketing for virtual. And I'll leave it at that. So let's move on. So that's a no-no right there. Let's talk about content marketing. I've been really thinking that content will be the differentiator of the future of events. Whatever type of content that you have, the delivery as well as the content and your speaker lineup and how they deliver and the energy they bring in is going to make or break your events. And I want to be very bold about it, because I don't want people to say, yeah, no, it's okay. No, it's not okay. So when it comes to content marketing, there's certain tactics about it that you can play with, be creative with, and think long game. So not think of an event from like the 8th to the 10th of June anymore. So talk with us about what are content marketing trends that you're passionate about, or you're sort of leapfrogging everything that's happening right now and saying, this is what we got to do.
Yeah. Well, content is, when you say, don't just do it in 3 days, it's because the reality is no one is solving the problems that they are or doing their work just in 3 days out of the year, right? They're thinking about this all the time, the work that they're doing. And so if you're missing the opportunity to be a part of that conversation, and that is just where content comes in. It's the entry point for your brand. It's the entry point for your event, but you can't expect that you can just, get your speakers, hire your speakers and go okay, well, we've built an agenda, and so our audience will come. We've set that. We're going to share out our big milestones in terms of marketing. So for content strategy, I do think actually virtual events, if we want to code everything under virtual events, whether they're webinars, these really short, pithy series, that became a huge content marketing strategy, especially if it was just for audience acquisition. If you're using that as a build-up for a return to a larger hybrid event, an in-person event, I think that continues to be really savvy, just because it becomes a content pillar. One, it's an incredible way to invite people into your story. It's a value exchange that makes a lot of sense. And quick note, when you were talking about exhibitors, that's where, side note, the coaching comes in, because if value exchanges, if we're not meeting everyone where they are, that's where it just gets off kilter. If it's, I want to just be introduced and have an initial conversation and you're trying to take money out of my pocket, it's going to feel like a mismatch there. But on the content side, your events also become your content pillars, where you can use all of that great video storytelling, clipping everything from your speakers and using that on social, because it is, and you said this, it's about what is the message that we can share that's going to feel compelling right now, and then how do we amplify it? And of course, social, I mean, if you have a solid organic reach and you've got partners who you're amplifying on your behalf, that's where the speaker reach comes in, but also on the paid side, because if you can use those clips and you do targeting in the right way, you're going to get the attention of a new audience, and then they can come into your next virtual event. So it becomes a little bit of a cycle there. So I would say, virtual events are still working, heavy video content. There's been a lot of great examples this year of really timely industry research and white papers, and that might sound a bit like a tired term, but they do still perform incredibly well and offer your audience a lot of great value if they're addressing something that is information that they actually need, and it allows them to consume it in another format.
Absolutely. And I love how the different examples that you have. And to be honest, and I know people know me as the app lady, which I don't know if that makes me old or not, but that's okay. So when it comes to how do you do content marketing or do sound bites and so forth, I want people to get out of their own way where they think it has to be so professional, but scrappy is good. And, you know, and you can do it in such a fun way, but you got to do it. You got to have something to do with content. You can't just like, and yes, you can have a plan and everything like that. But a lot of times the best sound bites are the ones that you sort of have ad hoc. So like if you even, you know, pull out like a vocal video, or if you pull out video ask, and I'm actually going to put this in the chat as well, or even Lumen. There is a bunch of apps, and I know that Rachel, Stefan, and other people that are also app ladies, get it, are in the chat. So if you know of any platforms that can help with content marketing, and also like content sound bites and how to like put something around that, please share with everything. And even Rachel Wimberly says scrappy is good, so she knows what she's talking about as well. But when it comes to content, those moments where you can think that the content or the speakers can help you promote even more, not necessarily your events, but your brand, your organization, the value add that you bring your community people together, that's when you have to get out of your own way. And your phone, like this is the best content creator in the world, or the content marketer in the world. Because, and actually this is the most innovative thing that we've had so far that we can use as event profs, in my opinion. So I'm going to put in the chat our video ask video, because that was a moment right there that we had. And so after the session, and here we go. And so that's done. But one thing that I also wanted to add on is with content marketing, because everybody has amazing content that they want to give a longer shelf life for. And so you have to also think of it as, how do you reuse, recycle, you know, the content that you have, or how do you design more content that will help you market going forward? So like Clipper, which is also in ETL, they have this way of analyzing the content, and I think you've seen it, where it's all about like, it's all about the analysis of it, where you're also able to see the points of interaction. You're able to do a Google search engine of it, and it's very relevant because of everybody's attention span, because everybody wants to have, it's almost like your own YouTube channel, but for content, right? And so everybody wants to consume that. But as an event organizer, there's monetary opportunities around it. There's co-created content that could be done around it. The sponsorship opportunity is amazing. I've seen it where like Adobe conference, as well as Adweek conference, they've taken their content and marketed and promoted it as channels, even on Roku. And I'm going to say it because I know that LinkedIn just dropped $5 billion into Hopin like today, right? Where content is going to be a magnet. So you're probably going to have content channels on the channels that we live on. And so around content, you're probably going to have events around content. You're going to have communities around content. So you're going to have to think of your marketing in a very different way. And the content is going to be a big differentiator going forward. So I don't know how much time we have. I have a couple of more questions, and then we can dive into the questions that are coming into on Glisser or on ETL. One question that I had is, you know, building the funnel for events when it comes to demand gen. Especially when you have a virtual audience and then you are going to go back to live and that audience. What are some of the tips that you can give everybody in regards to demand gen and all those different nuances? I'm not going to use the H word because I do not like it. I'm not going to use it.
She's not using any of the big words from this year.
No, we're not. We're going to make up our own words. So any tips on demand gen?
Yes. One quick last note about content that I was going to say very, very quickly is that I totally agree with everything you said. And I would say my final piece of advice is you'll need more content than ever, but it's also going to be a dime a dozen. So what you have to put in place is a strategy for how you scale that. Because you can't just go, we did one big white paper, and so think about either resourcing or the tools that you need. Like Dahlia said, tons of freemium tools. So it is critically important that people have an engine running internally where you can create enough content to stay relevant. On the demand gen side, it's interesting. I mean, it's going to be some of the channels that I mean, you're gonna drive demand through content. It's still a great way to open the right door. You have to look at what your data set is. If you have owned data, so you can kind of look at what do we have, what do we need to get that's new. If you have data that you can sort of reawaken because you do have a new value prop and you do have a new competitive advantage and you can nurture that, that can be a way where you're not having to start to be top of the funnel. You've got prospects that you can actually re-warm up and put back into your pipeline. I would also say, I mean, you want to get new leads and new demand gen, but also look at what your pipeline velocity is. And if you're there going, okay, well, here's our key accounts, here's what we're working, our ideal customer profiles, and you've got a lot of stagnant leads, sometimes those just get ignored, and there's tremendous opportunity in what's just sitting in your funnel and just not getting worked, can't get worked, and marketing can actually retake that, own that, and nurture that through the pipeline. So, and then in terms of generating new demand, I mean, the ideal is high intent demand generation. And a lot of times those can come through brand channels. So if you do have a little bit of a longer leash, if you've got a podcast and you're able to do that, you've got video, you can clip that and run some paid and some distribution against that. That can be, a really interesting way to get people into a landing page. What piece of content can you share with them that feels like it's going to make it high intent? It's not just going to be something that's here's something really broad sweeping for the industry that isn't going to qualify someone. So that can be a great strategy. I do have to say, because it's still content, but for demand gen, we saw virtual events work very well. Very well. Yep. If you're doing a long series and that's your build up back to an event, that tends to work really well. Paid is designed, I mean, all of the channels are designed to, convert leads. The challenge in there is not getting the volume of leads, it's getting leads that you feel like are actually going to be, you're able to nurture and have the propensity to turn into an audience member, a sponsor, an exhibitor. So I would say put a lot of focus on the targeting within that. And if you can do a lot with lookalike audience build outs, that's going to help hone that in, as opposed to going, okay, great, we're getting early indicators, lots of leads, but they're not actually turning into real prospects for your event.
Yeah, and I think so. All you said was amazing, and what I want to make sure that people understand, which they kind of do, but you can't be tone deaf to it, is understand what else is happening around the audience that you are marketing to, because first and foremost, it's like I know, and it happens in our industry more than anything, where it's like, and everybody's like, Dahlia, why is there not one single calendar of all industry events so that we're not tripping over each other and blah, 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 blah. But the whole, so when we say know thy personas, like you said, it really is also making sure you understand the timing of your promotions, the timing of your events, because, for example, this is the first summer without masks. Ta-da! So if you think that people are going to be, like in front of their screens for hours and hours, you better be giving them not only white cheddar popcorn, like gold or something, but the idea is give them the opportunity and the options of the format of the experience and the content in the shape and form they want. If they're used to being if they're going to be on the beach, then you got to think of audio content and how are you going to promote that? And if you're going to do it like where it's master classes, not 2 hours long, you're going to have to chop it up. Or are you going to revamp your LMS system and then you're going to house all your content somewhere, gate it, make money on it, whatever it is. So you have to think of the long game. And even if you're an event organizer, your content is your currency at the moment. Your marketing is, throughout the channels that are going to get you in front of, we're not talking only about the audience that you're used to. You're talking about new, different audiences. And then you can propel that whole community over and over and over again. But I want people to start thinking of not one event at a time, or marketing one event at a time, but it's a total different ball game at the moment. So that's because demand gen then gets prolonged as well.
It does. Yeah. Yep. It's stepping outside of, that's probably one of the, there's, when we think of like what do we leave behind, it's thinking in terms of that same marketing cadence of, okay, we've got registration is open all the way up to your know before you go emails. You have to break out of that. And I would also say we also have to break out of this idea of okay, well, we'll open registration and then we're going to kind of drip out all the information about the event. The empathetic piece is that your audience needs more information to make that decision, and they're not going to make it until they have all of your event structure, all of those insights, everything they need to know about it. So it's being much more realistic and tied into what is going to actually get someone to act, and having those very real conversations internally.
Definitely. So the big question is about technology, right? And so actually, one of the questions is, what tech do you favor to help with attendee marketing? I'm not one to like drop names, and I don't know if you want to do it. It's up to you. It's all you. But
fire away.
But so if we talk about attendee marketing technology, what do you recommend for our viewers in regards to tech to look at?
Tech to look at. So, I mean, with any marketing, it's, okay, where am I getting my data and how do I tell the right stories? So your MarTech stack, you can use a number of different CMSs. Every tool is going to have an advantage and a disadvantage, and an API that works in your favor and an integration that doesn't quite work in your favor. So I think the biggest thing to look at is what CMS tool. Obviously you should be, interfacing with Salesforce or whatever you're using on your pipeline and revenue enablement side of things. A couple of tools that I will mention that I think outside of the standard suite that people might not be looking at is, for the content side, Turtle is a great option. Turtle is a way to have interactive content. So if you, think of a static PDF versus something that allows you to tweet directly from it, you can put the gate further into it. So if you actually want people to read, a chapter of your content, watch a video, tweet something, and then they're kind of more on the hook. And then they're actually willing to put their email address in, which is, the goal. That's a great tool because it also shows you where are they spending their time, what chapters or what content are they consuming, and then you take that and you run with it. You go, okay, well then that's also what we push out on social, or we do another piece focused just on that. This piece had these 4 topics, the one that clearly got the most engagement. So I think thinking along the lines of where do we get those insights that we can use. There's a lot of different social listening tools. Sprinkler is a great one just because you can build everything into dashboards and it's got the nice little green and red, but you can easily look at it, have everything curated and go, okay, I'm feeling really strong where we are with, engagement. I can identify where there might be detractors. You can hone in on that really quickly. Where are we getting a level of influence? Oh, great. I'm going to personally reach out to these people and talk about partnering with them for the show. It could be your super fans already. It could be people that you don't know are super fans. So any tool doesn't have to be overworked. It doesn't have to have every single bell and whistle. I think that's sometimes where we can get into our head. Everyone's like, what tools are you using? If you have 1 or 2 or 3 that you feel like, great, this is really powerful and it's giving us a competitive advantage in some way, then that's what's worth leaning into.
Perfect. No, that is perfect. I always tend to tell people and advise people, take a look at a tech stack that is bigger than what you need. And the reason I say that is I have a feeling, especially now, that our event profs are outgrowing the solutions and the tech stack that they had. And on the flip side, I have also seen event technology companies become MarTech and become part of the MarTech landscape. But so this is out of the comfort zone of a majority of event organizers. The marketing, the content creation, all of that is not necessarily directly in their wheelhouse. And when it comes to technology and having that discussion and conversation alone, and also trying to figure out, okay, how do I implement that across events or across an organization? This is where I say, do not do this alone. It is not one of those, things that you can just have at it. It's not going to work. Therefore, it's going to be very challenging, very underwhelming. And so, this is where I would suggest go to peers, go to communities, see what's working for them. Not everybody's the same, but you have to think bigger. So like when you said turtle and sprinkler, you don't usually use these, type of technologies within our space. And this is the time, it's do or die, where you got to get your marketing right. So I'm glad that you mentioned those. And Kush also mentioned Snowball, which definitely Rachel and the Snowball team and amplifying, and you used the word amplifying as well. So that's one thing to look at, is like, how do you amplify your event marketing? So looking at the questions, the other top question is, how often are you changing or updating your playbooks?
Ooh,
I was going to say every day, but
I know. I mean, do I have to get my mug out again? For goodness sake. So you do want to balance. So frequently, I would say, that is where the agility piece comes in. If you're running, we're kind of in this transition state where it's like, okay, we've got physical events coming back, we're doing hybrid, but even with running virtual event series, whether those were monthly, if they were weekly, you have to look at what was actually working, where did we see conversions from, like, were we dropping off in terms of our verification? Is that the content? So I would say every month, look at what your campaigns are, what can you refresh, or just as often as you feel like. Some of it is you're going to have the data, and this might be a little bit of an unpopular thing to say, but some of it is going to be your intuition, and don't ever lose track of that feeling of, because you might have, well, everything, it's fine, and we're seeing attendance, or we're seeing people register in there, but part of being embedded in an industry and being what I think is a good marketer is being active on social, watching everything really closely, and you might get that intuitive sense even before your data is showing that, where you're feeling this prompt to, gosh, I like what they're doing. I feel like we should be doing this. I think we need to change this. Our branding might feel a little bit stale. I just saw this ad. Keep a swipe file of everything you think that's amazing, and then use that as inspiration. And so some of it is, if you're seeing other ideas, incorporate those right away. It doesn't have to be this whole overhaul of our strategy needs to change, our budget needs to change, what channels we're on. It might just be a creative refresh, or just really a teeny tiny tweak to your campaigns that make you feel like, oh, okay, I feel that we're staying really relevant and one step ahead of the game. And some of it is just switching your culture internally to being able to have those conversations. Because it can be like, not a set it and forget it, but we're sort of running with our campaigns. And so just also, be willing to just have those conversations and see where they go.
No, that's perfect. James, how are we doing?
Hi, James.
You're doing fabulously. I'm smiling because I've just seen, as Kathryn was answering that last point, and somebody has posted into the group chat, I don't see the website for Turtle. And then I saw you looking away from your screen, Dahlia, and lo and behold, there is the link in the chat. I can see you multitasking in real time, thousands of miles away. Could I ask one very, very quick thing before we wrap up, guys? It's related to how much different tech there is, and the question of what platforms do you actually use, Kathryn. I've found in my own experience that no matter how long the tech demo is with the company trying to sell you the tech, that you know within probably 2 or 3 minutes whether or not you're going to get it and if it's useful. And I think that's something key that a lot of tech companies maybe not miss out on, but I think you have to be able to sell it within 2 or 3 minutes. And if you can't do that, it's perhaps a bit too complicated. I just wonder what your thoughts are very quickly before we wrap up.
I agree with that. I think basically what you're saying is know your competitive differentiation and be willing to lead with that. That's going to get your audience's attention because you're going to have a lot of stakeholders in the meeting. You know, by the time you get to the point of, okay, where are we with integrations and how would this work, you know, for a 1 to 2 year plan, you're already far down the buying funnel. So I totally agree. Think a lot about that pitch, think a lot about that initial positioning, because that's going to be what sets the stage for if everyone keeps paying attention during the final stages of the demo. That's a good point.
We've got to wrap things up, ladies, but Dahlia and Kathryn, thank you very much for this session today at Event Tech Live.
One last cup.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know whether or not I could reference it verbally on air, so I'll leave it just for the people watching.
You mean the ringmaster of the shit show kind of reference?
There we go, Dahlia. There we go.
Okay,
Absolutely.
there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, we're online. There's no censorship here. Dahlia El Gazzar from Dahlia Plus Agency and Kathryn Frankson, Director of Event Marketing at Informa, have joined Event Tech Live today. Loads of great comments about this session, ladies. Thank you very much for being part of the show. And we'll see you back again, Dahlia, for another session later on in the program. And Kathryn, thank you very much for joining us today. We'll see you both soon.
Bye.